Hello, friends. I am Vitaly Pornikov. Putin held a meeting of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, which had been announced last week as an important event, during which the issue of so-called revenge against Ukraine would be discussed, following the famous special operation by Kyiv aimed at enemy aircraft that were used daily by the Kremlin regime to bomb peaceful Ukrainian cities and towns. It was believed that it would be during such an expanded meeting with the permanent members of the Security Council, as well as invited guests, that Putin would work out exactly how he planned to take revenge on the neighboring state. However, in reality, no such event took place. Putin decided to speak virtually with the permanent members of the Security Council of the Russian Federation about Russia's role as a preserver of traditional values. It was also confirmed by the secretary of this body, Sergei Shoigu, who stated that this was indeed the agenda of the Security Council meeting. After the meeting ended, he promised to carry out all of Putin's instructions regarding the protection of these traditional values, which are now even enshrined in the Russian constitution itself. All this talk about values, about liberal totalitarianism, about how Russia preserves the past, looked, to put it mildly, blasphemous against the backdrop of the attack on Ukraine on the night of June 10. As is known, during this attack, St. Sophia was damaged. Just imagine, barbarians are destroying one of the most important elements of the oldest Orthodox Church, connected with the history of ancient Rus and with princely dynasties. They are also destroying the historic Odessa Film Studio, which is extremely important for the history of all cinema, both past and present. And after this, literally just a few hours after these acts of destruction, they hold a Security Council meeting, during which the supreme commander of this barbaric army, a person directly involved in the destruction of churches, monuments, the bombing of museums and libraries, talks about preserving traditional values. Of course, this may seem absolutely ridiculous and serves as a reminder that in reality, Putin doesn't have any genuinely new tools for escalating the war against Ukraine, not because they don't exist, but because Putin uses them every day, and he was already using them even before Operation Web. And it was not this operation that caused Putin to continue terrorizing Kyiv, Odessa, and other peaceful Ukrainian cities. Rather, it is because the tactic of terror is an entirely natural approach for the Russian state and for the kind of war that the Russian state has waged or has waged in the past for decades against the civilized world. This is exactly what the war of barbarism against civilization, which we used to read about in history textbooks, looks like. The only difference is that in the past, barbarian leaders did not hold Security Council meetings about protecting traditional values. Or maybe, by the way, they actually did. It's just that back then there was no television or internet, and no one to record all those cynical speeches they gave to their subordinates in between killings and rapes. But this meeting should still be taken seriously, and here's why. This is also an appeal by the president of the Russian Federation to the world of the far right, which is gaining more and more ground in the civilized world, in the West. Many supporters of far-right post-fascist and post-Nazi ideologies see Russia as the clear successor to Hitler's Reich, specifically in terms of values. As the clear successor to Mussolini's fascism, specifically in terms of values. And it is very important for Putin to demonstrate that this is indeed the case, that despite all the talk about him being a great fighter against fascists in Ukraine, in reality, he is the very person in whom the spirit of the Soviet Czechist idol Adolf Hitler has been embodied. Of course, from time to time, they also recall how great another bandit and murderer Joseph Stalin was. But believe me when I say that these people respect Hitler much more. If Putin were asked, without any television cameras around, who he would like to be like, he would clearly say Adolf Hitler. And Putin's ally, Alexander Lukashenko, as is well known, has never hidden this desire of his. And after being elected president of Belarus, he reminded people of how much good there was in the actions of the Führer of the Third Reich. These are, so to speak, already documented facts that reveal the true priorities of these scoundrels. And in this situation, of course, Putin is holding this meeting not only and not so much for the Russians. Russians are of no interest to the Russian president at all, because he knows that their amorphous and incapable of resistance society will accept any ideological choice. If Putin tells Russians tomorrow to walk under swastikas, they will gladly give Nazi salutes on every street and square in all Russian cities, and will insist that Russia has always been an oasis of Hitlerism. But what matters to Putin is that the West believes it, so that he can continue a fruitful dialogue with activists and leaders of far-right political movements on whom depend both the solidarity of Western countries with our state and Ukraine's European integration and Ukraine's Euro-Atlantic integration. The Russian-Ukrainian war itself leads to fears about the possibility of hostilities spreading to the European continent, which includes NATO and European Union countries. We see the uncertainty that exists in the sentiments of many residents of Western countries, and Putin wants to take advantage of all this to remind everyone, if you choose far-right allies who are ready to come to an understanding with the Kremlin, nothing will threaten you. There will be no war on your land. But if you vote for totalitarian liberal suffragists, that, my God, who even writes this stuff for him? And of course, after many years of war in Ukraine and the destruction of the Ukrainian state, the Russian army will come to you as well, bringing new bloody crimes. This, in essence, is the core of the Security Council meeting that the Führer, the Russian Federation, held virtually today. Thank you, friends. Stay on this channel, subscribe, follow me on social media and on Patreon, buy me a coffee and Donatello, which helps support these resources. Use the sponsorship feature on YouTube. Wishing you victory and peace. Good luck.